start with your intro, do you want to tell the world of 5 subscribers at the moment, 5 subscribers, a bit about yourself?
Yeah. So do you guys, or do you have a name for your subscribers? But
Do you want to try? The podcast is called Out of Your Mind, with yo meaning your, but yo is my last name, so it's Out of Your Mind. So
Out of Your Mind. Okay.
yeah, Out of Your Mind. That's the
Right.
name of the podcast.
Okay. So hello, Out of Your Mind subscribers. Thank you for having me on this channel today. I'm a good friend of SJ. We momentarily worked together at North Shore Hospital in Auckland, and we also used to serve in the same ministry at church, which was the newcomers group. So I am Juhee. People also call me Dr. Fish because my last name is Roh, but it's not the fish Roh. So I am a doctor, and I am currently a postgraduate year 5, meaning that it's been 5 years since my graduation. Goodness. And I'm about to embark on my much awaited journey in specializing in dermatology from the end of July onwards at Waikato Hospital. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And I graduated from the University of Auckland back in 2018. And yeah.
Yeah, awesome. That's a great intro, because on our first episode, I had a friend on from Australia, and some of the 5 subscribers, they have a big voice at the moment because there's only 5 of them. They gave a couple of feedback. One was like, I have no idea who your friend was. So one key feedback was, can you make your guest introduce himself? So I think it's a really good way to start off. I guess then we can kind of move on to your career, on how you got to where you are. Yeah, just start somewhere there. As you mentioned, it's a long way to get there. How did you get to where you are?
Yeah, so sorry if I cough in between. I'm just recovering from influenza. Sorry, it's not COVID. So as mentioned before, I'm class of 2018. So I graduated from the University of Auckland back in 2018, studying medicine and surgery. That's the name of our MBCHB course. So I never envisioned to become a doctor. I've always wanted to become an architect because I had my passion and my goals were much more directed towards arts and interior design and architecture. But, you know, things don't go according to plan in life. And I guess it's quite, it's not a bad plan. It's not quite bad if your plan doesn't go to plan and then you end up becoming a doctor. That's not what I'm saying. But there was something that I wanted to do, which was very different to medicine. So I spent most of I graduated from Auckland Colleges group, ACG Senior College, and I went to high school there with the sole purpose of studying for my Cambridge examination. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to go to university in Australia. And so this was after I decided I wanted to do medicine in my form 1 to 3 years in college. So then, yeah, once I went to ACG Senior College, that's where I honed down and started studying, physics, biology, and chemistry, which are all very important topics to delve into before you start doing biomed. So yeah, I didn't want to go through the strenuous process of first year biomed because, you know how scary it is, and people always tell you it's competitive, only, 1 in, I don't know, 200 of you will get in out of this whole cohort of, thousands of something people. So they ingrain this mentality of competition and from the get-go, from even before you apply to biomed. So that obviously put me off, and I studied really hard in my final years studying for the Cambridge examination. So I didn't want to go through the whole process again in the first year of biomed. So that's why I decided I was going to go apply to study medicine in Australia, because some of the medical schools there don't have a pre-biomed prerequisite sort of year that you have to spend. But you know, in God's plan, that didn't work out because I wasn't a citizen of New Zealand back then. Now things have changed. So if you have citizenship and residency, it's quite like your citizen's status in Australia is different. But back then things went straightforward, which meant that I got accepted by some of the medical schools in Australia, but it meant I had to pay international fees, and that wasn't possible for just based on my upbringing. So I made the conscious decision to go for studying biomed and applying for medicine like all over again. So yeah, so that's how I started off studying medicine. And then medicine is like a 6-year course. So
yeah, just 6 years, right? Just 6 years.
Yeah, not just 6 years, but and all, yeah. I say just 6 years because I think from the very beginning, the whole reason why I applied to medicine was to pursue the specialty that I've always wanted to, which is dermatology. And back then, things have changed now, but back then we used to have to write these forms called MHO3 forms. And basically it's like a form where you there are 2 questions, and the first question is, why do you want to study medicine? And then the second question is, it asks you like tell us about yourself sort of question. So like, why should we pick you for medicine sort of question. So you have to write like these 2 long like paragraph based essays on to answer those questions. And I remember, so I would have written that like 10 years ago when I was 19. I had specifically written there, and I still have this to this day because it just helps to ground me and sometimes like bring me back to why I started this whole journey in the first place. And I think that's really important as we talk about resilience and burnout later on, is just to come back to the sole reason for why you started this in the first place. So I wrote there that I want to become a doctor to become a dermatologist. And fast forward 6 years of medicine, 2 years of internship, and then 2 years of residency years, I am there. So yeah,
if I get better in editing, I'll do like fireworks and stuff.
Whoa! Oh wow.
That's what I do for now. Once I get better, it'll be real stuff.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so I know that may sound like to some of you like, oh my gosh, 10 years. But realistically speaking, that's 10 years is the fastest you're going to really get anywhere, because in medicine, at baseline, you have to study for 6 years. And I'm sure that's similar like worldwide in different, parts of the world. Medicine is like basically 5 to 6 year course. And then in New Zealand, you have to do at least 2 years of internship. So we call interns here house officers, based on like the UK healthcare system model. You can technically gain your like medical registration after the first year, but I believe that everyone has to become at least a postgraduate year 2 house officer before they apply for registrar positions. And the registrar position then, depending on whether you want to pursue surgery, anesthetics, or medicine specialties in general, you have to go through the whole like medical residency program as well as exams. And the earliest you can really set your medical exam is after the 2nd year. So I really took the expedited way, and there is really no way faster you're going to get to anywhere other than probably 10 years. Yeah, so it is a long journey. So if any of you are interested in pursuing a career in medicine, you're in it for the long haul. And it still hasn't ended for me because I'm only just at the starting point of my training in dermatology. So it's another 4 years from this point onwards.
Wow. Just so much respect So I guess
Yeah.
like hearing you, the 10 years journey, it was really important to know your why. And I think that finding your why isn't just valuable for house officers or med students. It's important for anyone because we are always achieving new things, we are aiming for new things, and that why is something that grounds us to why is this still worthwhile. So would there be any tips on how you found your why that can be role modeled for others who are currently searching for their why? That's number one. And then number two is once you have your why, how do you keep it close to you and still meaningful for you? Because sometimes it might be, oh yeah, that was 2 years ago, but now it's so different. Or you just keep forgetting, you just keep moving on, and you're like, okay, I figured it out back then, but I'm still lost. So first is how do you find your why? How did you find your why? And how do you keep reminding yourself and grounding yourself using that?
Mm. How did I find my why? I think I think for me, how I found it was just based through, like, the way I see it is like you really just gotta look at your surroundings and the path you've walked so far in order to find your
Mm,
why,
mm,
because it's really not, your why shouldn't have to like be something that you have to go searching to find. I feel like
wow.
you just gotta, it's not, it doesn't mean you stumble upon it. So I think, I guess my answer would be how I came to find my why was, as I said before, I think a lot of a series of unfortunate events that happened in my life around that time when I was like in my final years of college. Is, you know, going from studying design and like wanting to pursue architecture to wanting
Mm,
to study medicine is like a complete 180.
mm,
Um, I think I really just tried to understand. So I'm Christian, and so I'm always going to ask why
mm,
when a lot of things happen in my life, because I just
mm,
believe you don't have to be Christian to believe this, but you know, if you're a person who always believes everything happens for a reason,
mm,
um, that's always a good mindset to have if you want to like find a purpose for a lot of things, is
mm,
to not just absorb the situation as it is, but to, you know, like ask yourself why. So I think at that point in my life, just based on a lot of things that was happening around in my surroundings and the path that I was like walking at the time, I just, you know, asked God, like, what is the meaning of all this? Why did you allow all of this to happen? Why? Yeah, what am I supposed to gain from this? So I just kind of paused and just
mm,
reflected back on everything that happened to just look at a greater picture. And I think that's probably how you're going to come to find your reason as to why in a lot of things.
yeah.
Sometimes all that requires is you don't really have to go looking for something new, but actually the purpose and your question to why for a lot of things probably was always there from the very beginning. So
Mm,
I think just taking the time to pause and reflect and also seek the counsel of, you know, the people that you trust and love the most and ask them, you know, like, this has happened, how am I supposed to interpret this? And if this is in relation to your vocation, then you can always ask, like, what do you think? Like, do you think I don't know, ask your best friend, ask your partner, ask your
mm,
church congregation, ask your seniors, like, am I, you know, do you think, you know, that in the season of my life, this is where I'm being called to? And do you think I'll be
mm,
able to fulfill this purpose? Is
mm,
probably how you're going to find what how you'll, so the way I see it is you're probably not going to find the why, but the why is going to come and find you. So I
wow.
think good I think that's a
Yeah.
good mindset to have. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to feel so I know yeah, you don't have to feel so anxious. So the Korean word that I was gonna use was like 조급해.
Mm,
But you don't have to feel so anxious because yeah, that reason will come and find you. So
mm,
yeah.
mm,
So that's how I would answer that first question.
mm,
And then the second question is how I keep myself grounded to that why. But I'm a person who meditates and reflects every day. So the first thing that I
why?
why? I'm a very introspective person. And yes, I'm always gonna ask why. You gotta always be like a 2-year-old, when you first find, when a 2-year-old, the terrible twos go through this phase where they're like, why, mom, why, what is that? But yeah, so I'm a person who always wakes up and every morning and just reflects on how my the day that has just passed and how today will be like, and what mindset I should go into starting off that day. So I think it's always a good idea so if you're not like a meditator, I still think you should probably set aside a time, maybe even if it's like once a week when you're catching up with friends, or ideally it should be every day, because I think the best way you're probably going to ground yourself and come back to your purpose is to get into a habit of thinking about it. You know how they say, if you manage to do something repetitively every single day for 21 days, I think it's 21 days.
21. It'll stick.
Research has shown that it becomes your habit. So I think it's good to build that good habit of meditation, because if you don't think about it in our day and age, and as doctors we work sometimes up to 72-hour shifts a week, and last year was really hard for me, as I'll touch on later, but because that was not last year, the year before that. So the year that I stepped up to be, so we call it stepping up when we go from internship to residency years, or every time we go up a role, we call that stepping up. So the same year that I stepped up from a house officer and intern to a registrar, that same year was the year that I had to study like 160 something lectures worth of content on top of working 72 hours a week. And I was also at the time serving in a ministry, not in a ministry, and at my church, and I was doing other extracurricular activities, and so it was a very stressful year. So if you really don't take the time to just set aside a time just to reflect on your purpose and the meaning of all this, then it's really easy to get carried away in the mundane things of life. And the reason why we live like that is it is to fulfill this purpose. So if you're living not knowing your purpose, then I feel like that's where you run into the risk of burning out and giving up.
I think this is the one time, and hopefully not the last time, where I can say she's a doctor. That's a pretty good advice around that 21 days habit thing. And when YouTubers go like, this is not a medical advice, or this is not a financial advice, this is one time I can go, she's a doctor, so she can say that.
Yeah, but I think a routine and a habit is really, really important. It's something that and I'm not talking about just building any routine or a habit, but really try and find in your early 20s, because I believe that's the audience that I'm talking to. Really build your community, focus on building your community, because these are the people that's going to support you through these times when your habit and routines break down. Really focus on building healthy habits and routines, because you'll be amazed how long they sustain you for the rest of your 20s. And as someone who's at the end of their 20s, and having looked at my surrounding and how my friends have different ways they cope with things, and I have 80% of my friends are in medicine and they're all in high stressful jobs. I can vouch that building healthy habits and routines and community, creating your community and really finding that purpose by setting aside a time to reflect on it every day is going to sustain you long term. And you're in it for the long haul, right? And we don't just live today for YOLO. So yeah.
YOLO.
If that's what they call it these days, sorry.
So I think that's a really good place to kind of wrap where we are, and then move on to our second part, where I'm really looking forward to this, around resilience and burnout. So if I had to summarize some of the key things that you've mentioned, it's really around, there's a season of searching the why, and the why may be closer than you think. And you may not be looking for the why may come and find you. So being reflective, being self-aware, being mindful, taking time to pause and observe was one of the key points around the season of searching. And then in terms of sticking to the why was really like, okay, after you had that season of searching, bring some of that to your day-to-day life. Reflect on your, in a day-to-day manner, reflect on your life. Start the day with the mindset, how I'm going to live today and what purpose is driving you, and ground yourself through that way. And also build up accountable community that will keep you accountable and support you to keep you in that why when you don't feel like you're in the why. Is there anything that you would like to add in that short attempt to summarize what you've mentioned?
No, I think that's all. Sorry, I do tend to ramble, so just cut me off when I ramble.
No, it's good. It's good. It's good. I think people want to hear your story and like your own words on how you went through it, because there are people who would relate with me and there are people who would relate with you, and not vice versa. So I totally appreciate your time. So if you liked what you heard, like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Yes.